Right now on NBC 5 News at 10, Mexico is voting in an election which will likely choose the country's first female president. We have team coverage live from Mexico City tonight, and we're going to show you how voters here in Chicago are reacting. Plus, a teen trying to change a tire is tragically hit and killed by a vehicle on the Eisenhower. We'll tell you how his family is remembering him tonight. And a toddler dies after being hit by a pickup truck on Chicago's South Side. Hear from neighbors who heard the crash and rushed to try and save that little boy's life. The news at 10 starts right now. All right, thanks for joining us here on your Sunday night. I'm Evrod Cassimy, and we begin tonight with this historic presidential election in Mexico. The polls closed just a few hours ago at 7 o'clock, but we are still waiting for a winner to be declared. One thing that we do know is the country is widely expected to elect its first woman president. So we have team coverage for you tonight from our sister station in Telemundo. Jorge de Santiago, he has reaction to the election from Mexican citizens living right here in Chicago. But first, we begin with Alfonso Gutierrez, who joins us now live in Mexico City. Alfonso's been there covering this election for the past few days, all leading up to tonight, Alfonso.
That's right, Era. For the first time in history, two women lead the presidential race here in Mexico. As you can see here at Zócalo, which is Mexico City's main square, the party has already started with music, dancing, and of course, with lots of mariachi. Emotions, as you can imagine, are very high, something that started really early in the whole nation, even before the voting sites open. Just like Mexican President López Obrador, and the three candidates, Israel and his son arrived early to the voting sites.
It's completely history. It's a new thing we haven't seen yet.
For them, their vote was influenced in part by family who live in the U.S.
In Chicago and Miami. So from my personal point of view, it's very important that the political exterior in Mexico is going to be changed.
According to the National Electoral Institute, today, nearly 98 million could go to the polls in Mexico, and more than 250,000 Mexicans registered to vote from abroad, including the Windy City.
It's among the four cities with the greatest number of registrations to vote from abroad. And second, because the Mexican community in Chicago is politically very active.
It's really exciting to get out there, vote. I think everybody's really excited, regardless of what the result is.
Among those who went to the polls today include people who were born outside of Mexico.
Chicago is an amazing city. I enjoyed spending summers there with my cousins, swimming, all the good stuff that Chicago has to offer.
Amy Glover was born in the Midwest. She became a Mexican citizen almost 20 years ago.
Soy estadounidense por nacimiento y mexicana por elección.
For that reason, Amy voted today with both nations in mind.
We need to work together. Mexico is a critical piece of that. I think some Americans don't appreciate how important Mexico is to the U.S. and Canadian economies, both in terms of agriculture and manufacturing. And we're all stronger together.
It's very different when you hear something about the importance of the election from someone who lives here, from a Mexican, native Mexican.
Something that also excites Amy is seeing more women in Mexican politics.
It's a real achievement, and I love that we're going to do it before the United States. The representation of women in the Congress is around 45% in Mexico, much higher than the United States.
Maybe they are not like this this huge amount of Americans voting here in Mexico as Mexicans voting in America. But they are like these people who can spread the voice of the importance of the election.
Everard, I don't know if you listen, but right now the emotions are really hard here at Zócalo because we're listening to one of the most iconic mariachi songs called Cielito Lindo, Beautiful Sky, which a lot of us, of course, know. But now, going back to the elections, as of right now, ruling party candidate Claudia Sheinbaum is leading the race, according to the National Electoral Institute, but it's too early because the vote counting has just started. We can say that the preliminary results are expected to be announced in about maybe 2 or 3 hours. That depends on the counting. But of course, we will follow closely these elections, and tomorrow we will continue our special coverage here from Mexico City. But now, back to you, Evrod.
We're certainly going to watch this very closely History in the making. Alfonso, thank you very much. Meanwhile, as Alfonso mentioned, Mexican citizens living outside the country were also able to cast their presidential election ballots today. Many Chicagoans tried to do just that, but for some, it didn't happen. Our team coverage continues with Telemundo's Jorge de Santiago, who spoke to some residents who waited outside the Consulate General of Mexico. He joins us now in studio with a look at how that process went. Jorge?
Evrod, tonight what was meant to be a moment for democracy, it quickly turned into anger and frustration for some Mexican nationals that wanted to vote in their presidential elections. At the Mexican General Consulate in Chicago, hundreds gathered early this Sunday to have their votes and voices be heard.
I was in the line for 7 hours, and at 7:30, they closed the consulate and they didn't allow us to vote.
Well, we just came here at like 1 p.m. and we've been waiting in line next to like a whole bunch of people, and it turns out that they didn't let them vote.
With only 9 booths inside to accommodate the thousands of voters outside, desperation and frustration grew quickly due to the endless wait.
They didn't care about the people didn't vote. They didn't care about the Mexican Constitution. They didn't care about anything.
Amazing because we are making history, but it's also a disgrace because most of the people felt uncomfortable because they didn't vote.
According to the Mexican National Electoral Institute, INE, Mexicans who registered in advance were able to vote online or in person in Chicago, unlike previous elections. Election observers like Jose Humberto says he felt left out.
We don't have any information from Mexico about this election because you saw all the people here trying to get a vote, but they couldn't.
Authorities in Chicago were forced to close down Ashland Avenue heading south due to the large number of people. The outrage at times turned towards reporters from Mexican nationals in the hopes for answers, while people like Roberto have this message for Mexican authorities.
This cannot be happening. This is like, I don't know, I'm really frustrated right now.
By the way, tonight we have reached out to the Mexican consulate about the situation, but we haven't heard back just yet from them. By the way, Chicago police has asked us to check in with them tomorrow for official numbers of the people that gather outside the Mexican General Consulate here in Chicago. Ebrod.
All right, Jorge, of course, will stay on top of that. And we will have continuing coverage of this historic election on our morning show tomorrow. That's going to begin at 4. And you can also keep up with the incoming results on our website, NBCChicago.com, and on the NBC Chicago app. In other news tonight, there was a tragic crash that killed a 4-year-old boy on Chicago's south side this evening.